Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and I am back once again from the Race the World First. I put a video out, I think 5 or 6 days ago, and then right after I got home, I got sick. So, just a cold. I'm okay. I feel like I'm on the road to recovery at this point, but from what I assume was a cold. But I want to make this video talking a bit about Warlocks in Mythic Sanctum, because we made one for Heroic, and we made one for like the first few days of Mythic, talking about what specs we assume we played in each fight, give or take this and that. But now that we've got a decent bit of data out, Sylvanas has died, Teemo's doing well, Destro's doing well, and we've seen a little bit of pop up in certain spots too. I wanted to take some time to talk about it today. Once again, if I sound a little stuffed up, my apologies, I'm sorry. Hopefully I'll be getting back to normal pretty soon. Now, in addition to that, I also want to talk a little bit about legendaries today, because I've gotten a lot of questions over the past week or so about what should I upgrade first, Wilfrids or Cinders, or why is Af doing so well, and should I look at making Malefic Wrath, and really what's going on here? I've heard Decaying Soul Touch is very good. Should I upgrade that? So I want to address that today as well, give you my thoughts, my plans moving forward, and then, well, go from there. I also want to apologize briefly, guys, for the lack of Mythic raid boss kills on the channel. Unfortunately, my plan to record content and edit things in Texas during the Race World First casting really didn't work out. So this Wednesday is my guild's re-clear. I can shamelessly plug my stream here somewhere. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get a few boss kills up at that point. We are 5 out of 10 heroic now, working on Painsmith, which is going to be a fun time. So if you guys want to swing by and watch that, feel free. The videos should hopefully start going up next week, and hopefully getting back to schedule for normal content releases. Oh, and I also forgot to add, I had to go back in and edit this after the video was basically done. We are less than 170 subs or so on the YouTube channel, away from 50,000. I don't get anything from 50,000, but it's been a personal goal of mine for a long time. So if you aren't subbed to the channel and wouldn't mind doing so, or at least considering it, well, that'd be awesome if you would consider it. It'd be awesome to wake up to 50K tomorrow. With that being said, let's get back to it. So, with all that being said, I want to talk about Sanctum of Domination, because we mentioned a lot about, well, Lock is good in Sanctum, but it's not as dominant as Affliction was in Nathria, which was interesting because we really didn't think Af would be that good in Nathria. It was actually being downplayed as one of the worst specs, and then lo and behold, Af was, well, very good. So this is an all boss summary here of Mythic Sanctum. Sanctum. So we can see Lock's not performing terribly. Terragru, we've got Destro Parse up here, which is actually insane. I have no idea what powers he got or what he got fed, but 21k, pretty impressive. Destro, some Demo Parses mixed in. I have the Jailer, some Destro mixed in here. Boomkins, what a surprise. The 9, some Demo mixed in. Destro. Lots of monks on Soul Render. Those ads, they crank. Painsmith, a little bit of more of a melee fest. Honestly, I'm not that surprised here. We'll get to this in a little while, but Destro is more of a tool kind of spec for this fight. Not really a super flashy one, but good on the fight nonetheless. Guardian, however, is a very good Demo Lock fight, as you can see. Many Demo Locks in the top overall parses here. Fate Scribe, a Demo Parse, and then Kel'Thuzad, a couple Destro ones. I guess 3, give or take. And if we go Sylvanas, we can see, well, there is a Demo Lock. But to be fair, he wasn't given, oh, he was given 1 PI. Over a 15-minute fight. So there we go. But looking more in depth here. So starting off with what spec, I guess we're gonna look at what spec ended up being best for each boss from a progression standpoint, because early on in Heroic Week, people had a lot of questions about, well, there's a lot more Demo than I thought there would be. Well, it was Heroic and not Mythic, and Mythic brings a handful of mechanics with it, which introduces some different elements to each fight. So the Terragru, once again, dude, imagine getting fed 6 PIs and 3 fairies. Yeah, I'm not salty, I'm jealous. There's a difference. That's pretty legit. I expect the Demo to be pretty good in this fight. It's your best patchwork spec in the game, and very strong when you're fed or given power infusions to further, improve the spec's overall fluidity and damage. Now, this Destro Parse here, I'm going to be honest, I don't think we can actually see talents taken or the right traits taken for this boss here. I have no idea what happened, but I would assume there were some 10 of Towers, Tower of Terror, whatever the traits that you don't normally take for progression. I would assume if those were probably taken. Now, I'm also going to assume basically every parse we're looking at here has Unholy bonus, which I have all 3 shards of Unholy and Blood, 2 of the Frost ones, but no pieces to go with it. No helm, no shoulders, and no chest. So we can't really see a whole lot what's going on here, but Blade of the Life Taker, for example, that was 11% of their damage. And so Azrot, was that, okay, interesting. So I don't know what trait this is, obviously, but Terragru is more of a toss-up gimmicky kind of boss in the best way possible. I think it's a very good fight for a first boss of a tier, and with it being so gimmicky, I think they really hit the nail on the head with this boss. The first 6 bosses in this raid are great. Unfortunately, 7, 8, and 9 aren't the best, but Terragru, I think it's one of the best first boss we've seen in a very, very, very long time. So we expected a lot of demo. For the most part, there is a lot of demo. Eye of the Jailer, we expected a lot of Destro. Now, some guilds, you know, depending on your strategy for progression, allow you to cleave. My guild doesn't let us cleave on Eye of the Jailer, which is unfortunate. But regardless, it is a very, very, very good Destro fight. Destro is the king of 2-target cleave with burst and CDs, and you can see that. There's a lot of Duplicitous Havoc, Dream Weaver, Pod Tender, Destro, big 2-target fight. Huge fight for Destro locks, very good. What we expected. The first shakeup here, though, which we started seeing a little bit on Heroic, is actually the 9. So the 9, I assumed, would be a pretty good Destro fight. It was fine for Demo 2 because phase 2 is big. It's single target. There's one add up. It's the boss. There's one boss. There's one target. But phase 1 is 2 target with 3 targets in a minor overlap, potentially with Lust, with 4 targets when the boss lands. However, the fact that both targets are stacked and all 3 are stacked at times in phase 1 gives Demo a bit of extra cleave, but also the majority of this fight being single target makes Demo an even better choice here for phase 2 when you have Lust, and especially, once again, you can see here, if you're getting fed power infusions and things, Demonology is, I feel personally, for single target, the best spec in the game for power infusions, and I don't think it's very close. Maybe Boomkin, solid too, but a lot of Demonology here, which was surprising. A mix of, you see, Carnivorous and Fel Commando. I played Carnivorous initially for our kills, like our very first Mythic kills on the 9. I might go back to Fel Commando when I have an equal eye level conduit. It's really back and forth for me. But regardless, very interesting build nonetheless here, or I guess story here nonetheless. A lot of Demo is what it is. I played Demo on this fight. It feels better than I thought it would. So this is the first big surprise of this tier, but I do feel Demo is to play on the 9 as far as progression is actually concerned. Pretty universal generic builds here. There's a Reign of Chaos build here, which it leads to more phase 1 extra damage and pad and things, but as far as phase 2 goes, once again, the overall consistency is just not there. He actually played Wilfred's, which is Wilfred's Reign of Chaos 2-minute build, which it's a fun build, but it's not as good in phase 2. Moving on. Getting to some of the Remnant or some of the Affliction questions here. Remnant of Ner'zhul. So we assume this would be a Destro or Demo fight. I said it might be a Demo fight if we need boss damage. It depends on the final orb health tuning. And you can see, for the most part, it's a pretty big Destro fight. But we also have an Affliction parse here. And the cool thing is that even if you go and sort by actual raw boss damage dealt on this fight, across like all Warlocks, the Affliction parse is actually pretty high. Let's go overall Warlocks here. Damage to bosses. You might assume, oh, this is a crazy amount of pad, the orbs, because there's a clip of me bursting like 40k on PTR testing this boss. We're just drain filling an orb. But if you go to boss damage, this is sorted by boss damage to bosses. Remnant of Ner'zhul. The AF lock's actually up there too, albeit 500 DPS behind the Demo lock, but these are like top parses with synergy. Now, they did get 2 power infusions, and AF also benefits a lot from getting power infusion. But the interesting part of this log is that the orb damage is not incredibly excessive. Their orb damage is, they had 751. You guys can't see it here. I'm gonna scroll down a bit. They had 751 damage dealt to the Orb of Torment. The Destro Lock had 820. Right? The Warrior had 445. The Rogue had about a decent bit less. The Mage had 376. But I mean, AF and Destro are going to do more damage to the orbs than, well, I would assume classes that can't cleave as much, right? You know, so even the Boomkin had about the same, right? So it's not just the actual orb cleave, which AF is very good at. 3 dots, rapture them down, drain soul, and execute, right? It's also the fact that orbs are up for a decent bit of time. More agony ticks, more shard gen, more boss damage. So I'm a bit surprised to see AF this high, but at the same time, this is a pretty heavy movement fight, and which Demo's not bad at, Destro's sort of clunky at, but if you don't need the on-demand snap burst on the orbs, AF, it's a decent option here. It's decent. It's surprising. There was not as much orb pad as I thought there would be. Now, 2 power infusions, obviously. I'm not going to go super in-depth into the log here, but I would assume probably during big orb burn. Let's see here. Power infusion. Let's see if we can go a little deeper. Power infusion, it lusted at about the 420 mark, give or take. Power infusion coming up right about the lust mark. So that's going to be an insane amount of damage when you have orbs up and everything like that. But regardless, not as bad as we thought. You'll have to excuse me, I just had a terrible coughing fit. I'm sorry, but I'm back. So going back, this is the actual boss damage tab again for Remnant. Now you can see this is the boss damage tab. This is the overall damage tab, which is usually more relevant. A lot of Destro damage here because big org cleave on overall damage, but boss damage, Demo's ahead by a decent bit, or it's there, it's relevant. So once again, this fight, if you need the patchwork damage, Demo's great. We know that. If you need more orb cleave, hey, Demo's great, or Destro's great too. We know that. But AF putting up numbers both in boss damage and just overall damage is actually surprising. I want to look into this a little more. This is not AF being incredibly OP. It's not like it's hidden sleeper best spec in the game. Not at all. But AF does excel in settings like this, where you have 2-3-ish targets up for a decent bit of time, or damage amps. AF is still very good even after the nerfs at dealing a lot of damage during damage amps, similar to like the first boss on Tyranno's side, similar to orbs taking 300% increased damage because you have Rapture hitting, you have Withering Bolt, you have Focus Malignancy, you have these damage amps with large, which huge crit window CDs. It's not as bad as it actually seems. So moving on, Soul Render Dormazane. This is okay. This is the overall damage tab. Damage, Soul Render. Number 1 is an Affliction Warlock. But before we get too excited, look at the build they're playing. Rather than Agony, sow the seeds. So this is a very large add pad build of Affliction, which this is the same build we play in Mythic Plus for the most part, right? If we go to overall boss damage, well, let's go to their damage first. Damage to boss. Number 1 spell being Agony. It makes sense. Rolling Agony, rather than Agony. But if we go to overall boss damage from, the raid in general, well, the Warlock is towards the bottom portion of this. But at the same time, which Demo is up here by a substantial amount, we know Demo's good at single target. If we go to add damage, not the Overlord, because the Overlord is the one ad that spawns by itself that like makes them uninterruptible, right? Very low damage. We get it here because, well, it's a priority burn target. The overall ads, though, yeah, that's some real damage. So this build is very, very good at killing ads. This boss, though, is, for the most part, the ads don't really need a huge amount of damage dealt to them from the entire raid. You've seen a lot of raids just put like their Windwalker on it. Hey, have the Windwalker kill the ads, stay on the boss, burn it down. This seems like they had the actual Warlock do it because there's no Windwalker in this raid, and it worked out pretty well. So if you need to kill ads, AF is not a bad option. But it's, besides that, putting all that aside, if we did filter by boss damage here, it'd be a Wall of Demonology, which is a little surprising to me. But at the same time, when we tested this fight on PTR, it never felt like a great Warlock fight. It felt like it was okay. You could bring some single target damage, or you could bring some, ag cleave every once in a while, but there's not like a boss and a priority target. The Overseer is there. And once he dies, it's like 5-6 targets you need to cleave down. That Destro's not incredibly good at giving that on-demand 5 target burst damage, right? You have your Cataclysm, you can drop a Rain of Fire. That's if you have an Infernal going, great, but you're not going to drop a million, just a huge explosion of damage in there, right? Like a Demon Hunter or a melee meat gang kind of class probably can, So not a terrible Warlock fight. The ads can be handled by AF very well with Sow the Seeds, possibly. No power infusions for what it's worth either, on a 8 minute kill roughly. But besides that, this is more so a demo fight, which is what we felt it would be towards the later end of PTR, just because of Destro's toolkit being a bit meh when it comes to ad damage, and the boss's health being relevant, and well, Demo's good at that too. I will say, as far as playing Demonology in this fight goes, you have to be very tight with your Tyrant cast. If you're a little late on them and the dance starts, it pushes everything back. You have to be really tight with your Tyrant cast, which, hey, PI helps a little bit too. So a lot of PIs here. Moving on, Painsmith Raznal. Now, this boss, we saw a lot of Demonology play with on Heroic, which, to be fair, it's fine. The orbs needed to die a lot fast, or they died a lot faster. You didn't need the relevant ag cleave, but that is not the case on Mythic. The orbs have more health. They need to be killed faster. The raid is separated and not able to get as much damage on orbs at times. Number 2, there are ads coming out of the intermission, which I think arguably for the actual damage window that you have, like time for him to kill them, Destro's better at than Demo, unless you're hitting demonic strength. You have Kata in the Rain of Fire into some havoc windows and all that. Demo doesn't have time to set up an implosion there. So I think Destro's a little better for that. Good for ag cleave. And that's it. But as far as like this fight goes, it's not an incredibly flashy fight for Destro. The highest overall parse for Destro is 7.8k. The highest overall parse in the fight, well, is 8.5. So like we're not crazy far off, but it's just not an amazing Destro fight as far as like flashy overall damage goes. But having a Warlock in this fight is very relevant. Demonic Gateway, skip the spikes. Number 2, big ag cleave, or I guess spiked ball ag cleave. Warlock can also blink through the spikes with Demonic Circle, or all playing Night Fate for the most part, so Soul Shape's relevant. So Lock is very good utility wise in this fight, progression wise. Not the flashiest on overall damage meters, but still, for the most part, it's what we thought it would be. Destro being good on Painsmith Raznal. Moving on from Painsmith, we have Guardian of the First Ones. This is the Demonology Warlock fight of the tier. This is overall damage from every single class and spec in the game. 4, 5, 6. Well, there's 6 Warlocks. They're all Demo. 3 sub-rogues, 6 Demo locks, and a warrior. So this is a very, very, very good Demonology Warlock fight. If you are in a raiding guild and progressing on Guardian of the First Ones, you should be PIing your Demo locks in this fight. Demo is the best single target spec in the game when you have Lust and Power Infusion. It's even better if you have classes like Blood Decays, which, hey, super secret tech, right? Knew about that one for a while. Blood Decays with the Vampiric Blood Legendary, or other, rally, like, actual shout classes. Things that can buff your health stamina-wise. Demonology just scales to an insane amount with PI. And you can see that here. The highest overall parses, 6 out of 10, are Demonology Warlock. So we 100% expect this to be a Demonology fight on PTR, through testing, all that. It is. Not really a whole lot else to say about it. A little bit of ooze is popping up, which is sort of cool too. Not as relevant as like him, or as, I guess, universally relevant as Hymnal Ruby was last time around, but still solid, just nonetheless. Ooze, Ruby, big combinations here. Good thing is, Ruby's still good for every spec. Ooze, a little single target, a little narrow, but at the same time, Guardian's your Patrick fight of the tier. So, Demo Lock, very strong in this fight. Let's see the overall damage breakdown here briefly as well. Let's see here. How much did Ooze deal in this fight? Ooze's overall damage can vary a bit, but I'm going to assume it's going to be relatively high here. It was 3.73%. So I've seen upwards of 5% from actual Ooze, the trinket, which is pretty strong. Nonetheless, this fight, we expected it to be Demonology based, and it is. So the only fight that's really surprised so far, honestly, has pretty much been, the 9 with Demonology. Moving on, though. Kalamazi. Sorry, Fate Scribe. Lord, I'm sick. So this is the second fight that has been surprising to me. I would say a decent mix of Destro and Demo, but I mean, there's a big difference here in overall Demo damage, like 10.8k versus 8.5k. There's a what, 2.3k DPS separation here from 1 to 10. Now, I will say Demo's being given PI here. If Demo's getting PI, which you should be PIing your Demo locks, it's going to do very, very, very well. Demo getting PI versus Destro getting PI, like both in single target encounters, Demo scales so much better. Destro gets it, but it can't make as good of a use of it as Demo can. So even in a fight like this, where you have some cleave in phase 2 and this and that, Demo can just brute force a lot of the fight. Now, there's a lot of RNG in this fight too, because at times you're going to get the rune mechanic in phase 1 twice, or the rune in phase 3. I don't know. I'm not gonna look at the logs here, but I would assume this person probably didn't get it. RNG is RNG, but either way, Demo's cranking this fight. Fate Scribe has like the tank adds a spawn. They have the small tank adds a spawn, which you kill the larger one, and they have like the 2 adds in the intermission. But for the most part, you can make the tank adds, the 2 adds in phase 2 die in the intermission for the most part, and you can also delay the intermission by not finishing the final lock until they're dead. If you need big boss damage on Fate Scribe, Demo can very easily be the play. Destro also not bad though. Cleaving tank adds, cleaving boss. I think both specs are fine here. Honestly, my guild's working on Painsmith right now. I don't know what I'm going to play when I get here. Probably going to look into both. I'm really not sure, because when we get to Guardian, probably in a couple weeks, it's going to fall over in probably 10 or less pulls with all the gear we have at that point, right? But I'm surprised to see a mix of Destro and Demo here on Fate Scribe. Nonetheless, cool to see. Cool to see. Both have relevancy in this. Both have relevancy. Both are relevant. There you go. In this fight. Number 9, Kalamazi. A lot of Destro here. So there was a lot of hype around Affliction being good on this fight when it comes to Wrath and Consumption and just what it can bring to the fight. But unfortunately, with Kalamazi being the 10.5 minute encounter that it is, where you just sit on your hands and don't really do anything, you're probably not chaining Wrath and Consumption very much that fight. Even if you are, you're having to stop DPS forever. And well, that just puts Destro in a pretty good spot. Now, we also did think coming out of PTR that Destro is probably going to be the safest play in this fight. A lot of ag cleave, controlling ice shards, controlling what adds die, give or take. And you can also see here, Grimoire of Sacrifice. Also see here, Shadow Burn, Flashover, Korain. A very spicy build here, but solid nonetheless. I'm excited to see Shadowburn here because this is one of those fights where you can get a lot of Havoc Shadowburn cleave, and they did indeed fix the ads not dying on KT. Ads do die, so you will indeed get your Shadowburn shard refunded to you, the actual charge refunded. It works very well here. Also Korain, so many ads spawning, so much first trick uptime, well, hunt tactics uptime. Just a really solid Destro fight overall. Now, we did also see a handful of builds playing Reign of Chaos and Wilfred's pop up early, but I don't think it's probably as relevant as just the 3-minute build for a handful of reasons, especially with us holding DPS. But nonetheless, for the most part, a little disappointing we don't see AF on KT, but Destro is probably the spec that's going to be being played, and well, you know, it was. So here we are. Number 10, the big dog, Sylvanas Windrunner. So we have 3 bosses here, 3 specs, or 3 locks. Jeez, I am sick. I'm sorry, guys. 1, 2, 3. So this fight was a toss-up because we didn't know what was going to happen on Mythic compared to Heroic. Now, the arrows die very fast. To a similar extent, the arrows are also grouped up in Phase 1, so they're easy to kill by classes that can just go melee, meat gang, grind them down. Phase 2, there are a lot of adds that can be cleaved down, Havoc, Shadowburn cleave, but honestly, this boss is a tight DPS check, at least for now. Probably in 2 weeks it won't be, but it's a very tight single target DPS check. And without having, you know, people playing Demo in your raid, more single target based classes, it would be hard to meet that actual DPS check, which is why you see nothing but Demonology Warlocks played here. 1-minute Tyrants getting fed power infusions, which these actually didn't. I'm surprised that they sort of didn't at the same time, but I'm happy that Sylvanas is a demo fight. And I guess you can say this is the third boss that we sort of missed the mark on by guessing the spec, but at the same time, we just weren't really sure what it was going to be. You know, I mean, shoot, we were actually thinking it might be an affliction fight at certain times because of just how movement heavy it is. But in the end, well, it ended up being a demo fight, and I'm not really too frustrated about it. So playing a very similar build here, which you normally play in single target. So for the most part, I'm happy with this tier. Locke is looking good overall. We're not like super flashy. We don't have like an insanely high single target sim unless you're, you know, feeding demo PIs and stamina effects, but we're solid this tier, both from a damage perspective and a progression perspective. So I think for the most part, we might have gotten 2.5-ish bosses a little wrong spec wise, but for how we're performing, I'll take it. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about legendaries this tier and which one I'm probably upgrading first. Okay, so I've gotten a lot of questions about what do I upgrade first, because Demo's good, Destro's good, and Night Fae is fun with Decaying Soul Touch on Mythic Plus. What do I do? What would you do? This is my current loadout. I have enough Soul Cinders, well, I guess I will have enough after I do Torghast tonight, to make rank 6 Cinder Flame legs, Cinders, triple conflict legs. So I upgraded these to rank 5. Now I have not done rank 6 yet. I actually have the legs somewhere in my bags here. I know they're a mess. Yes, I get it. Your real options here in the raid though are honestly Cinders or Wilfred's, because Destro and Demo. There really aren't a whole lot of, there's not really a reason to play AF in the raid, barring like there being a bit of, okay, you know, a handful of fights are pretty good AF fights, or can be with your padding, whatever. But Destro and Demo are the main focal points of the actual raid. Now, my thought process is this. So the first 5 bosses should die pretty easily. You've got Terrorgru, the 9, Eye of the Jailer, Remnant, and Soul Render Dormazane. Now, there's a mix of Destro and Demo on both those bosses, but the first wall boss that most guilds are going to hit, which is not necessarily a DPS check, it is at times, probably won't be a whole lot at this point, it's a mechanics check, but nonetheless, the first wall boss you're going to hit is Painsmith Raznal, number 6. Now, this is a 1 and a 5, 6, there you go. So, which is Destro, obviously. Destro, big spiked orb cleave, which we talked about a little bit ago. Ag cleave coming out of, you know, phase 2 back into phase 1, which is why I chose to go with Cinders. I assume my guild will probably be on Painsmith for about a week and a half, give or take. Could be longer, could be shorter. I really don't know. The fight, I don't think will be a big DPS check over the next few weeks. It's more going to be a mechanics check. But nonetheless, I would assume we're spending probably 80-ish to 100, if not more wipes in that fight, give or take. So number 1, that means you're investing a lot of time in that fight. So you can upgrade Cinders to rank 6 this week, regardless. So that means next week and the week after, at least for me, I have 2.5-ish weeks to just get Soul Cinders, stock them up, and be able to start piling up for the Wilfred's upgrade, which is most likely going to be relevant whenever we go past Painsmith, which we have Guardian, followed by Fate Scribe. Whether you play Destro or Demo here, who knows? Then we have Kel'Thuzad, which is Destro. Cinders is already there. And if you want to play 2-minute build, well, Wilfred should be there too. And then Sylvanas herself comes around as the final boss, which is, at this point, an actual demonology fight. So the two bosses this tier that I think, like, influence legendary decisions are Painsmith and Sylvanas. But like I said, there's a handful of bosses in between Painsmith and Sylvanas that give you enough time to craft both. Now, obviously, if you're in a World First Guild, okay, like THD decided to upgrade Wilfred's instead of Cinders because Painsmith was there, but their goal is the final boss of the expansion, or the final boss of the raid. Whatever gives them the most power on that boss is what they end up playing, which Wilfred's rank 6, I get it. But like I said, I'm not going to be on Sylvanas for a couple weeks, probably a few weeks, give or take, a month, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. So I think personally for me, to play as Cinders to rank 6. Now you don't get a fourth conflict rate stack, it doesn't reduce the charge time by 4 seconds or anything, and it's not massive, but the extra secondary stats and main stat will indeed help there. Now if you're playing Demonology and Plus or on Painsmith for a few weeks, or just enjoy playing Demonology, it's more than fine to upgrade Wilfred's now if you want to. You can upgrade whatever you want. Just saying, from a progression standpoint, Painsmith will be the first wall you hit, I feel, as a guild progression wise. So it makes the most sense to me to upgrade Cinders and then work on Wilfred's after that. Now, Decaying Soul Satchel, I will say this legendary is awesome. However, it's more or less, it's mostly a Mythic Plus legendary. There's not a whole lot of relevancy to it in the actual raid. If you're on Soul Render Dormazane, playing this Seeds build, I could maybe see this being played there actually, but for the most part, you're not crafting this for one niche fight, a niche part of a niche fight in a overall undertuned raid. I would say, I would assume this raid for my guild turning over in like a month and a half, give or take. I could be wrong there, I don't know, but I would assume so, because the actual power gain from week to week, this tier is incredible compared to the last few. You have domination sockets, domination shards, sockets, conduits, empowered conduits. This is probably going to be the easiest raid to farm we've seen in a very, very, very long time. Bosses 1 to 6 were great tuning wise. Painsmith, an awesome mid-tier wall, but unfortunately 7, 8, 9 were a big letdown, and Sylvanas herself, while being a really cool fight on Mythic, you know, kudos to Blizzard for making it a good fight on Mythic, much better than Heroic, but unfortunately that fight's just going to die so incredibly fast with more gear, it's not even gonna be funny. But regardless, I would make Cinders. I'd push it to rank 6 first, and then I'd probably do Wilfred's. At that point, you can do really whatever you want besides that. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video gave you all a better understanding and I guess just general overview, insight, whatever you want to call it, of Sanctum of Domination from a Warlock perspective. Now, once again, I want to apologize for being a little absent on YouTube and even Twitch for the past 2 weeks. Things really didn't work out as how I wanted them to, streaming from Texas, albeit I had a great time. The race was insane, super awesome. And then I got home and got sick with a cold. But I'm hopefully getting over that now and should be streaming again tomorrow in the next few days and going from there and getting back to normal. So to a similar extent, I should also have videos for boss kills coming up on YouTube in the next videos as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I'll be sure to get back to you. Any Week Wars profiles or add-ons you see here, you can indeed grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, and ask any questions anytime, feel free to do so. I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Guys, thank you so much for support. I really, truly do appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you guys are interested in seeing more WoW content and helping support the channel, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons below. Helps out a ton. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.